Hello, everybody. This is a special edition of Off My Rocker. I'm calling it Off My Rocker. And we're doing a speed run of a bunch of books from the past few years that are centrally about women for Women's History Month. I really am genuinely speed running them. I'm telling you the name, who it's by, and a one-sentence summary of what it's about. I've broken them up by genre. I just want to give you guys some of my recommendations. These are like some of my absolute top-tier favorite books since I started reading again in 2021. So I really just want to get started because I have over 60 books to recommend. I want to start out with something that's one of my favorite genres. I love memoirs. I think memoirs are so important, and hearing women's stories is so important. So I'm going to give you guys some of the best memoirs that I've read over the past few years. I really encourage people to read more of this genre. First, I have a really famous memoir, Educated by Tara Westover. I read this for a colloquium in college. It is about a woman's journey as she grows up with a survivalist family and her path towards breaking out of that and getting an education. The next one is another really famous one. It was made into a movie some years ago. That's Brain on Fire by Susanna Callahan. This is about a woman whose life completely changes. She is not able to even function anymore, and kind of her fight towards the diagnosis that's going to give her back her life. The next one is a much lighter book called Little Weirds by Jenny Slate, or Marcel Duchamp if you know her. This is just almost like a little book of essays and pieces and little weirds about her. It's very solid. The next one is one of my all-time favorites. I also read for a colloquium in college. That's Crazy Brave by Joy Harjo. It's just about her journey towards becoming a poet as a Native American woman. It's a beautifully written book. The next one is In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. This is a really unique memoir about a toxic queer relationship that the author was in. The next one I have on my list is Somebody's Daughter by Ashley C. Ford. This is a very heart-wrenching memoir about a girl who grew up with a incarcerated father. The next one is another one I read for my colloquium, which started my love for memoirs, but that is The Faraway Nearby by Rebecca Solnit. This is a memoir about interweaving stories into your own life story and like storytelling and how to tell stories. It's another really beautifully written book. The next one is an insanely important, powerful book. It is Know My Name by Chanel Miller. This is the memoir from the woman who was assaulted by Brock Turner and just the aftermath of that event and then the court proceedings and how that affected her life. It's really important to read. This is like one of my top ones on this list. The next one is super popular as well. Probably most people know it. This is Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. This is just a memoir about a woman navigating her 20s and the different ups and downs. It was very relatable for me at the time that I read it. And I'm excited because she apparently has written another book that's coming out this year, or did come out already. The next one is actually a graphic memoir. So it's completely illustrated. That's called Ducks, 2 Years in the Oil Sands, and that's by Kate Beaton. This is about her 2 years as she worked in the oil sands in Canada. And what it was like being one of the only women there. Definitely trigger warning for sexual assault for this book. The next one is actually another illustrated memoir. It's called Cheeky, a head-to-toe memoir by Ariella Elovic. This is just about the author's journey to self-love and accepting her body. The pictures are really cute and it'd be a really good gift. And the last one I have for memoirs is a book I've already talked about on this channel, but that is Striptease by Kate Flannery. This is about a woman who grew up as a millennial in Los Angeles and the time that she spent working for American Apparel, which at the time was a cult, basically. So that's all I've got for memoirs. Those are some of my tippy top books from the past few years. So definitely recommend any of those. They're all very important stories from women. So I really want to uplift those at the beginning of this video. The next genre I have to talk about, I just want to talk about a couple classics. Obviously, most people are going to know these books, but I just want to highlight them as ones that I really love. The first one I have is The Secret Life of Bees by Sue Monk Kidd. This is about our main character, Lily, and it's a story about, primarily about family and daughters and mothers, and it's set in the 1960s. The next one, of course, you have to say Little Women by Louisa May Alcott, but just for a video like this, you gotta throw it out there. If you haven't read it, read it. The next one is actually the book that I consider to be my favorite book in the entire world, and that's A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith. This is, one of my favorite books of all time. It's really a coming-of-age story about a young girl living in Brooklyn. Also trigger for sexual assault in this one. I'm going to try to say that as I go, but a really, really amazing classic. The next one is Anne of Green Gables. I love Anne of Green Gables. I love the movies. I love the books. Actually, I think I'm going to reread them this year, but it's obviously that it's about orphan Anne and her journey through adoption and her own coming of age as she lives on Prince Edward's Island. That's what it's called. I have it written St. Edward's Island. I'm putting this one in here. I don't know if it's technically considered a classic. I think it's a very big pop culture book, but that's Valley of the Dolls by Jacqueline Suzanne. Suzanne, that doesn't sound right. I might have that author written down wrong. If so, I'll put it up on the screen. But this is just a story about 3 women in old Hollywood and their lives and their friendship. If you read Taylor Jenkins Reid, I would definitely recommend this book. She takes a lot of inspiration from the Valley of the Dolls. And the last one for classics is just another chef's kiss, Jane Eyre. I love Jane Eyre. I have read that book probably more times than any other book in my life. It's a young woman growing up and her relationship with this mysterious man that she meets later on, and it has major themes of transcendentalism, and it's really a romance but kind of a mystery. It's stellar. I only have a couple for the next genre. I don't read too much poetry, but I just want to shout out some of the ones I really love. Another one of my absolute favorite books of all time is Bluets by Maggie Nelson. It's a book of short essays, just musings on the color blue and looking at life and different aspects of life through the color blue. Amazing. I love it. Next is a very small book that I actually have personal connection to, so I'm not sure where you could find this book, but that is The Many Names for Mother by Julia Kolkinski-Dabash. She's got a tough name. I'm not sure if that's right. But this is just a collection about motherhood, again, by a small author that I had like a personal connection to. So hopefully you can find this book somewhere. If not, I'm sorry. And the last one for this genre is just a collection that's not really specifically about womanhood or being a woman, but it's written by a woman. That is Old Monarch Poems. That is by Courtney Marie Andrews. It's just a really, really solid poetry collection by a woman. I read it one day in Barnes & Noble all in one sitting, so highly recommend that as well. The next genre, one of my favorite genres, science fiction. I've got a few here. So the first one I want to say is Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer, a man. But it's okay. We love him anyway. This is a trilogy I did see on Goodreads. Maybe there's another one coming out. It is about it's a group of scientists who are women who go into this weird bio space. I don't even really know how to explain it other than that. There was a movie made of this one too. It's really good. The next one is one of my favorites from the past few years. It is The Ones We're Meant to Find by Joan He. This is about a woman who's been trapped on an island and she's been trying to find her sister. I do not want to say anything else because this is a crazy book. If you like Black Mirror, this is the book for you. It is literally like reading a Black Mirror episode. It's crazy. Next, I have Sorrowland by Rivers Solomon. Crazy good name. That's a crazy name. This is about a woman named Vern who's pregnant, who's being hunted by a community that she has escaped from, and she seems to be turning into something that is not totally human. This is a very character-driven book. I would just say that as a warning. It's not very plot-driven. Next, I have The School for Good Mothers by Jessamine Chan. This is about a young mother participating participating in a government program with the hopes of obtaining custody of her daughter again. And the last one, again, one of the best books I've read in the past few years, Our Wives Under the Sea. This is a story of a lesbian couple when one of them comes home from a submarine expedition irrevocably changed, and it is about grief and loss and what it means to love someone and let go of them. Amazing, beautiful book. Probably my favorite book out of these science fiction ones that I have written down. Next, I have some historical fiction books. I don't have too many here, but I have The Rose Code by Kate Quinn. Really, any Kate Quinn. I don't think I've read her most recent one, but she's pretty good. This is about 3 women who are code breakers during World War II. It was a very, very fascinating book. Definitely recommend this one. Next on my list is The Girls in the Stilt House by Kelly Mustian. This has a 1920s Southern setting, and it's about 2 teenage girls who are kind of knit together after they are both involved in a murder. Sorry, there's some sirens going on outside. I don't know if you can hear that. After that, I have The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. This was a really famous book. I'd be surprised if you haven't heard of it before. But it's about 2 sisters who are biracial, but one of them is white passing and one of them is not. And just the way that their lives diverge because of that. Very interesting, amazing book. Next, I have The Mercies by Kieran Millwood Hargrave. Very briefly, this is about a relationship between 2 women as they are in this village and are kind of trying to survive these witch trials that are going on. And last for this genre, I have Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Melinda Lowe. This is just a really, really good queer romance set in America in the 1950s. I'm really ending on a great note in all of these genres. I picked a really good one to end on. Next, I have some fantasy books to talk about. I'm not a huge fantasy reader, but I do have a good handful of them here for you. The first, I have to highlight House of Salt and Sorrow, and then the sequel, House of Roots and Ruin by Aaron A. Craig. These are probably hands down my favorite fantasy books I've read in the past few years. The second one especially is just mind-blowing. These books just have really strong female protagonists. I will say though, it is an ongoing series, and I don't think that the next one is supposed to come out until 2026. So just beware of that because I'm dying until then. Ooh, next is an absolutely amazing one of my favorites. That is When Women Were Dragons by Kelly Barnhill. This is an amazingly written book. It is written as if it is a nonfiction book about something that is called the mass dragoning that happened to overlooked housewives in the 1950s, where basically these housewives all on the same day at the same time turned into dragons. Amazing book, amazing. House of Hollow by Kristen Sutherland is another one with really strong female protagonists. This is a fantasy book about a group of very ethereal, otherworldly sisters that had something happen to them when they were young, and basically what happens when one of them ends up going missing. This is a really, really, really cool book, and she just wrote another one that came out this year that I'm excited to read. This last one is not going to be for everybody, but it's something that I really liked. It is In the House in the Dark of the Woods by Laird Hunt. This is a very lyrically written story of a woman who is a mother after she goes missing in these very mysterious, fantastical woods. And it's set in colonial New England. Think very Scarlet Letter vibes. I only have a couple for my next genre. That's just the thriller genre, which is funny because I feel like I read a lot of thrillers, but specifically ones that highlight women. I have to mention The Push. I loved The Push, and that is by Ashley Audrain. This is just a thriller about motherhood and what happens when women, and specifically mothers, are not believed. Amazing thriller. I loved it so much. Next, this is more of a drama thriller, but one that I really loved. It's called The Daughters of Foxcote Manor by Eve Chase. It's really about these women in this family and just different family secrets. I can't really give you any more than that, but it is amazing. 5-star read. And the last one for this genre is a book I've already talked about on this channel yet again. It is My Murder by Katie Williams. This is about a woman who is cloned after she is murdered by a serial killer who was caught in the area. And basically what happens when she realizes that certain things about her life and her story are not adding up. For nonfiction, I have a good handful of books for you. I tend to read a lot of nonfiction, and the most nonfiction I read is about women and women's experiences. So the first one I have is The Radium Girls by Kate Moore. This is about girls in the First World War war who worked directly with radium before its very toxic effects were known, and just their fight in court cases and for compensation for just the agony that they ended up going through medically from being exposed to this radium. It's a really great nonfiction book because it is written so narratively. You feel like you're reading fiction. The next one is really just a wonderful romp of a book. It's a little out of place amongst all the other ones I have here, but that is How to Be Parisian Wherever You Are. I think it's written by like 4 different people. It's just advice and thoughts from just 4 different really strong personalitied French women, and I really enjoyed it. The next one is called Push Out: The Criminalization of Black Girls in Schools by Monique W. Harris. This is quite literally just about what the title says. It's just lots of good information and statistics about the experiences that Black girls have growing up. The next one is basically a classic in nonfiction at this point. That is The Beauty Myth by Naomi Wolf. It is about beauty standards and how beauty standards shape women's identities. It is a really long book, but it is a really powerful book. The next one is technically nonfiction, but it is very much like, it feels like fiction. That's Three Women by Lisa Taddeo, but it is a true story about 3 different women and their sex lives. It's told very narratively. Again, it feels like fiction, but it's not. After that is one that I read this year. I've already talked about it again. It's Word Slut by Amanda Montell. It's just a book about feminist linguistics. It is, the whole title I think is A Feminist Guide to Taking Back the English Language. So that's basically all it's about. But it is, again, so good. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Here's another one that I recommended in my first video I made. I read it last year. That is Invisible Women, Data Bias in a World Designed for Men by Caroline Criado Perez. This is about the gender inequality in the world of data and research and the huge data gaps that we have in our understanding of women. And the last one for nonfiction is a book that I'm actually in the middle of right now, but I'm already a huge fan of. That is All in Her Head by Elizabeth Coman. It is really a comprehensive dive into the history of women's health and how women were often oppressed by the medical community or not believed. After that, I'm naming this category, if you support women's wrongs, here are the books for you. I read a lot of books like this in the past few years, so these are just some of the highlights for me. But I have All's Well by Mona Awad, my favorite by her by far. This is about a college theater director and her descent into madness after some really tough things happen in her life. Next is probably, again, one of my absolute favorite books from the past few years. It is Chouette by Claire Oshetsky. This is an amazing book. It is about a woman who has an affair with an owl and ends up getting pregnant and birthing an owl baby. And just her journey with that. It's amazing. It's one of my favorite books. I need to buy it in like a physical copy for my bookshelf. After that, I have Mother Thing by Ainsley Hogarth. This is a tough one to summarize. It's a domestic horror about a woman and her relationship with her dead mother, who she thinks is a ghost, her relationship with like her mother-in-law, and also just the lengths that she will go to protect her husband. And the last one was one of my favorite books from last year. It's Woman Eating by Claire Coda. This is about a young vampire that rents out an art studio and just some different things that she grapples with, including her hunger. And already I'm to my last category, that's fiction. This is just kind of a lumping of books that I feel like didn't fit anywhere else, but all fictional. So to start out, I have Circe by Madeline Miller. This is my favorite by her. It's just a reimagining of the mythological character Circe. Really powerful book about a woman character. This is just, it's again, one of my absolute favorites from the past few years. I have it because I love it so much. Next, I have Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. This is kind of the pioneer of the quirky female main character trope that we see a lot today. She's the OG, and this is her story about opening up and finding love. It's just a really, really good, solid book. The next one is pretty interesting. It is called Blood, Water, Paint by Joy McCullough. It is basically fictionalizing and imagining the life of the painter Artemisia Gentileschi, if you know her. I want to reread this book, honestly. It's one that I feel like listening to does not do it justice. I want to read it physically. The next one I have to shout out, The Maid by Nita Prose. There are 2 of these books now in this series. It's another quirky main character type of book, but also cozy mystery. But the characters in these books are just super lovable. I really, really recommend these. Fight Night is one of the most astounding books I've read in the past few years. That is by Miriam Toews. I don't know how to say her last name. It is just so poignant and uniquely written. It is about a 9-year-old girl named Swiv and just her relationship with her mother, who's pregnant, and her grandma. 1, 2, 3 by Lori Frankel is a really cool book as well. It is about 3 sisters in kind of a small town that has a lot of changes being made to it. I can't really say much more than that, but it's a really, really good contemporary fiction read. After that, I have Excellent Women by Barbara Pym on here. This is a short comedy about a woman who's the daughter of a clergyman. It's set in 1950s England in a small village. It very much has like cozy, like Miss Marple vibes, if you like that. I love that, so. Writers and Lovers by Lily King is one of my favorites also in the past few years. Easy 5-star read for me. It's a novel set in the late 90s about a woman who's just finding herself amidst some different traumas that she's experienced. The Swimmers by Julie Otsuka is the next one I have on my list. It's about a woman who swims every day at this like community pool, and then more specifically, it's about her daughter who watched her mother's decline. I can't say too much more than that, but this easy 5 stars for me, just a very good book. I love this next one. It's called How to Fall Out of Love Madly by Jana Casal. You think this is going to be a romance, but I think the summary on Goodreads put it really well. I'm just going to read this quote that I have. It is about 3 women who confront the compromises they've made to appease the men that they love. Next, I have The Very Nice Box by Laura Blackett. This is another quirky girl book, but about a woman who's a product engineer for a company that's kind of like IKEA vibes. And it's about how she opens up and gets into a relationship and how that's not always what it's cracked up to be, basically. After that, one of my favorites, I've already talked about it, that is The Bandit Queens by Parini Shroff. This is just a very satirical book about Indian women as they kind of band together to plot to murder their abusive husbands. It is so darkly funny. After that, another one from last year that I've already highlighted on this channel was Sirens and Muses by Antonia Angris. This is not exclusively about women, but 2 of the main characters are young women. They're art students at this art school in the 2000s, I think. So not entirely about women, but enough that I'm putting it on this list because I think it's just a beautiful book. And the very last one, this is the last one I have to recommend, but it is not a surprise to anyone. It is Hello Beautiful by Ann Napolitano. This book, I genuinely believe, will be considered a classic someday. It's just about this family and primarily the women in this family and what family means and how far family goes. Highly recommend. It actually has very much so like A Tree Grows in Brooklyn vibes, so I think that's part of why I loved it so much. Okay, and that is the end of my speed run. I tried to do this as quickly as possible to hopefully make this video as short as possible. I hope that you found some recommendations in this that you liked. Let me know if you read any of these, if you love them, if you hate them, I would love to know. But these are some of the books that are nearest and dearest to my heart from the past few years, so I just felt like taking the opportunity for Women's History Month to highlight those and recommend them to people is something that I wanted to do. So there you go. All my social medias and everything will be in the description if you want to connect with me. I would love that. If not, leave a comment under this video. You can like, you can subscribe, whatever you want to do. I will see you, probably the next one will be my March wrap up. So I will see you then. Thank you. Goodbye.